Welcome to Misunderstood Minds. I am your host, Wendy Moore. And today we're talking about something that almost everyone in therapy experiences at some point. But very few people are prepared for when it happens. And that's the feeling of being stuck. That moment when therapy no longer feels like movement, when it starts to feel repetitive. When you leave sessions thinking, we keep talking about the same things. Or, I understand it now, so why hasn't it changed? And for many people, this becomes the moment they begin doubting therapy itself. Feeling stuck in therapy can be surprisingly painful because often it happens after someone has already done meaningful work. They've opened up, they've gained insight, they've begun understanding patterns, and then suddenly the movement slows. Someone may say, at first therapy felt transformative. Every session felt like something clicked, and then it just plateaued. And that plateau can feel deeply discouraging because therapy often begins with visible momentum. The early stages can bring relief quickly, like naming patterns, understanding trauma, or recognizing triggers. But deeper healing often unfolds differently and slower. One reason this happens is because early therapy often works at the level of awareness, and awareness feels immediate. When someone finally understands why they react a certain way, why certain relationships repeat, why anxiety shows up the way it does, that can feel profound. But awareness and nervous system change are not the same thing. Understanding a pattern does not automatically dissolve it. So someone may say, I can explain exactly why I shut down emotionally, but I still shut down every time conflict happens. That gap between knowing and changing is one of the most misunderstood parts of therapy. Thought can change quickly. The nervous system usually does not. Because nervous system responses are built through repetition, often over years, sometimes decades. If a protective reaction formed in childhood, it may have been reinforced hundreds or thousands of times. That pattern becomes automatic, reflexive, body-based. Someone may say, I know logically I'm safe, but my body reacts like danger is still happening. And that's because emotional learning is stored differently than intellectual understanding. The body remembers through pattern, not explanation. There is often a point in therapy where the work reaches a protected threshold. This is where therapy gets close to material the system has learned is dangerous. And when that happens, the nervous system may quietly create distance. That distance could look like numbness in session, going blank, suddenly forgetting what felt important, or talking around the issue instead of into it. Every week, someone comes in intending to talk about grief. And every week, they end up talking about work deadlines instead. That is rarely accidental. It is often protection. This is where therapy language sometimes gets misleading, because what clinicians historically called resistance is often a nervous system protection strategy. Something in the system is saying, this is too much, too soon. And if that protective layer is misunderstood, therapy can become frustrating for both therapist and client. Someone may say, I want to go deeper, but every time I try, something in me just pulls back. And that pulling back is meaningful. It often signals fear, overwhelm, or unfinished emotional safety. Sometimes therapy feels stuck, not because the material is blocked, but because the relationship needs repair. Even subtle experiences matter, like feeling misunderstood, feeling rushed, feeling unseen. If the therapeutic relationship feels unsafe in even small ways, the nervous system notices and it adjusts accordingly. Someone may think, my therapist keeps pushing into places I'm not ready to go. That mismatch in pacing can stall progress because healing requires timing, not force. This is where neural echo loops become especially important in therapy. Sometimes therapy feels repetitive because unresolved emotional echoes keep circling back through the same themes. Not because the person is failing to heal, but because the original emotional imprint remains unfinished. What often feels like therapy going in circles is the nervous system circling an unresolved emotional echo. Someone may say, no matter what we talk about, it always seems to come back to the same wound. And that repetition is diagnostic. It tells us where the unresolved material lives. When therapy feels stuck, the answer is rarely intensity and almost never pressure. What helps is slowing down, tracking protection, understanding what is being defended. Sometimes progress returns not when someone pushes harder, but when they become curious about the stuckness itself. Someone may say, it wasn't until I stopped trying to force breakthroughs that something deeper finally emerged. That is often how healing resumes. Quietly, indirectly, with less force than expected. Feeling stuck in therapy is not failure. Often, it means therapy has reached the edge of something deeply important, something protected, something unfinished. And sometimes, the place where movement stops is exactly where deeper healing begins. This is Misunderstood Minds, where we make sense of what never quite made sense before. Misunderstood minds deserve careful listening, not quick conclusions. And as always, understanding begins with curiosity.